Hey everyone, welcome back to In the Abyss. I am Rob and we are moving into 2011. Remember, hit the subscribe button, make sure you're hitting that like button and keep leaving the comments. I love them. I am really excited now as we're getting into the mid 2000 period, right? 2010 to 2020. I'm getting further and further away from DVDs and more into my Blu-rays, which started to take over slowly but surely. And I started getting more particular about movies I was buying. So as you see in my older videos, I have stacks and stacks of these DVDs because you can get them for $2.99, $3.99. Well, of course, Blu-rays are more expensive. And I tried not to double dip. There are a lot of movies that I did. There was movies that just looked better in Blu-ray, or movies I really liked that I wanted to upgrade to Blu-ray. But also in the newer movies, I really tried to be more particular of what I was buying. So you'll see less examples of what I'm going to show you, and just more talking about movies, unless of course I own them. A couple that I do not own that I wanted to point out, Bad Teacher, Cameron Diaz. I think she is really good in this. She is really funny in it. You know, I'm not a huge Timberlake fan. I respect him for what he does musically and stuff, but I hate when they try to take people who are successful in other genres, whether it be sports, music, whatever, and try to throw them into our profession. The same way they wouldn't take an actor. They're not going to take Tom Cruise and put him in the NFL. You know, let us have us. Now, there are exceptions to the rules, right? We've talked about The Rock. We've talked about other actors that have come from other ways of life and have done a really good job as actors. Justin Timberlake, to me, is not one of them. But I get it, right? He has a following. He has people who listen to his music. You put him in movies, people are going to watch his movies. I'm just not a huge fan of him. Nothing about him personally. I like him fine. And I think, you know, in stuff like Alpha Dog, I think he does a good job. He's fine in, you know, the Facebook movie, whatever the hell that's called. You know, but overall, he, you know, like in Bad Teacher, he's just so busy and so acty. It's not even, you know, for me. But she is terrific, and she's worth the watch. Another one I'll point out is Horrible Bosses. I do think I own that, but I didn't want to break that out. I really do like Jason Bateman. Sudeikis is fine. Jennifer Aniston is great. The guy with the high voice, can't do it. If you're going to do that stuff, do it realistically from you. Stop playing these characters. And my students understand what I'm talking about. If you're not into acting, you know, and you watch these videos and stuff, you'll start seeing the acting in a different way. Watch their eyes. Watch the believability. Listen to the tones in their voices. And all of a sudden you'll sit there and say, wow, they are playing it or they are living it. Anyways, moving forward with the movies I wanted to show you, I'm going to start with Vince Vaughn, Kevin James, The Dilemma. Jennifer Connelly does good in this, as does Winona Ryder. It's funny because they're funny. I remember several years ago, I was down at Mother's Market off of Lake Forest, and I was going through one of the aisles, and standing right next to me to my left is Kevin James, right? And you know who it is. And I'm like, hey, how you doing? He's like, hey man, how you doing? What the heck are you doing here? Like he had known me from his whole life. And I'm like, yeah, just getting some stuff. He's like, yeah, my mom lives over here. I'm just shopping for whatever. And he's like, hey, how's work going? How's everything going? You know, he's this guy. He's very happy. He's very likable. He's very go-lucky, right? Like, and so it matches the roles he plays, which shows you when you watch him, whether it be Hitch or Mall Cop or something like this, that's who Kevin James is. He's very likable, and you want to like him. And then with Vince Vaughn and his Dilemma, it plays for a good comedy, and they're a good match. And once again, we talked about this the other day. We're starting to see the decline of the Vince Vaughn, you know, movie. We got, you know, at least one more to talk about coming up, but I do enjoy this one. Another comedy of two comedic actors I really do like. We already just talked about Jason Bateman, but also Ryan Reynolds in The Change Up, where they end up changing spots. And, you know, one goes from being the dad to the womanizer and vice versa. It's a good, fun comedy. Jason Bateman just has that dry delivery. And it doesn't matter if it's this, if it's, you know, Dodgeball as, you know, Pepper Brooks, or whatever he does. There's a consistency. We talked about him in The Breakup. You know, his delivery is just unique, and it's very much him. And that's why we watch him. We like Jason Bateman, and we get that consistency. And of course, we've talked about Ryan Reynolds several times. He understands that comedic formula, and he uses it to his advantage all the time, and it works for him, and it makes for a good comedy. Changing gears a little bit, Limitless, Bradley Cooper, Robert De Niro, a good action thriller type film. Not one of my favorites, but I do like the movie, and I do think the acting is good in it. Abby Cornish does a good job, and like I said, the other two do terrific. Bradley Cooper now is hitting his stride, right? He's starting to, you know, after Wedding Crashers, doing Hangover and stuff like this, he's really starting to hit his stride and do really well. And I actually may have missed, I don't know what year Silver Linings Playbook came out. I may have missed it, but once again, that's right around this time, and he's, like I said, hit his stride and really understands who and what Bradley Cooper is, and sells that really well. And it doesn't matter if he's playing more straightforward in drama or has a little bit of comedy to it, he does it really well. And remember, keep in mind, Bradley Cooper studied at an acting school in New York, right? A lot of these actors did study at acting school. Most of them did not just show up and become actors. They actually had to train and work at it, just like anybody else does. And he's a great example that if you put your nose to the grind and you work hard and you believe and you stay positive and you do all the things you can do, you can be successful. All right, next up, Liam Neeson, Unknown. I really do like this movie. I think he does a really nice job. I'm looking for, it's Diane Kruger again. I thought it was, and I just wanted to make sure. You know, she's now pretty consistent in movies we're talking about, whether it be National Treasure, Inglourious Bastards, and now Unknown. And this follows that Liam Neeson formula that we've been talking about, right? Where, you know, it's an action thriller, shoot 'em up, chases, all of that kind of stuff, and he does it really, really well. I like the twists and turns in this one. I like the fact of, you think it's going one way and it kind of turns and goes another way. And also I like the way that it's shot in the coloring and stuff. It makes it feel really dark and gray and that kind of stuff. And like I said, he's as consistent as any actor when it comes to doing oneself. And it doesn't matter what he's in, right? It's just Liam Neeson. And like I said, with him teamed up with Diane Kruger, and they do a really nice job. It's a really good, fun movie. All right, next up. So now I'm moving to my Blu-ray, so there's no specific order of any of these until the end. Rise of Planet of the Apes. I'm a huge fan of the original 5 Planet of the Apes. Or is it 6? It's 5. I'm looking at my box set back there. It's right there. But I like the reboot because they used a little bit of the originals in these stories, but they kind of did it in their own way and in more of a realistic way. And I like it. I don't love this one because I'm not a huge James Franco fan. But I like the story and I like the movie and I like the reboot in the way they have done it. And it's a good 3-part series thus far. So I wanted to point that out. Next up is the 4th Mission Impossible, Ghost Protocol. We talked about 3 the other day. I'm not a big fan of 2, but I like what they did in 4 and in really what they did in 5 and 6, which we will talk about down the road. And once again, this is a theme that all of a sudden we're talking about with Bradley Cooper, Liam Neeson, Tom Cruise, right? He has a formula, and the formula now is action and adventure. And it doesn't matter if it was what we talked about yesterday in Night and Day, or it's doing Ethan Hunt in Mission Impossible. It falls into that formula, and he does it really, really well. And that is that consistency of movie star that Tom Cruise gives you. You know, in the early years, and I think we've even talked about this, it was those romantic adventure type movies, Top Gun, Days of Thunder, Risky Business, etc., a Cocktail, you know what I mean? And now it's the action and adventure ones. And, you know, I just love his movies. You know, like I said before, there's not many of his movies that I don't like. There's a couple, but for the most part, I think he does what he does well, and I really enjoy him. And most of the time, I'm buying his movies. And this is another one in the series that's really good. All right, down to my last couple here. You know, I like originals. I don't like when they keep doing sequels and stuff because it gets diluted and kind of thinned out. But the original four, really great. You know, Chris Hemsworth, Natalie Portman, Anthony Hopkins, Tom Hiddleston. It's a really good movie. Tom Hiddleston as Loki, to me, is what makes this movie and the first Avengers. I think he's just terrific. He's believable. His eyes are strong. His convictions, he's really good. Hemsworth does a great job with him. And like I said, the supporting cast. Stellan Skarsgård is another one we didn't mention, but he's, you know, terrific in this as well. It's a great movie. And I like when movies are, you know, I was asked this the other day if I like Marvel movies. I like them if they can make them not just so superhero-ish. And I think when you start getting to the next couple Avengers after the original one, and you know when you get to the extra, you know, the 2, 3s and stuff, they're more and more and more and more superheroes with more and more and more side stories and less just direct. Here's the you know the original story, and that's why when I talked about a Wolverine the other day, I really like that because it's just straightforward. Here's the Wolverine story, and I think that this is straightforward the Thor story. You know what I mean? Which segues me into my runner-up for 2011, and that's Captain America. And what I like about this is the reality of the war tied into the fictitious part with Hydra and him becoming Captain America and so on. And like I said, it is a superhero movie, but it's right straightforward. It's also a World War II movie, right? And so I like the two combinations of the two, and it just gives you a feeling of that reality of, you know, a movie that happens to have a superhero, which I think, and we'll talk about it down the road, but that's another thing Wonder Woman kind of did, right? And really made it work. So, you know, I really do enjoy the first Thor, the first Captain America. We talked about Iron Man the other day. Before they start diluting them and doing too much, just straightforward, direct movies. And this is one of the ones I saw in the theater with Tyler, you know, back in the day. And you guys know I don't go to theaters, but I really did enjoy this movie when I went and saw it. And it's one I can watch multiple times. You know, Civil War is okay. The second Captain America is okay. But this one, really good. Number one, in 2011, Brad Pitt as Billy Bean in Moneyball. I love this movie. I love the story. I love his acting in it. I think Philip Seymour Hoffman, you know, as Art Howell does a great job. You know, I think all the actors playing the true baseball players, you know, David Justice, etc., do a really, really good job. I just think overall the cast is really, really strong. The movie's strong. The story is strong. It's interesting. It's engaging. You get a little bit of everything. The banter is great. And this movie never gets old. It just doesn't. It's really well done. And it's funny. We talked about this with Kevin Costner. Brad Pitt is one of these actors who's had the opportunity to become a good actor as he's worked. You know, and I mentioned Mr. and Mrs. Smith the other day, and now with this, Inglourious Basterds yesterday, really coming into his own and understanding how to be Brad Pitt. And the stronger he's getting, the better his movies are. And we'll talk, you know, like I said, yesterday we talked about Inglourious Basterds. Today we're talking about Moneyball. And the more we go on, we're talking more and more and more and more and more and more about Brad Pitt. He's going to be in more of these videos. And I love that. And like I said, this movie is fantastic. And even if you're not a sports fan, it's a must watch. So if you haven't seen it, you need to check it out. Okay, so on my music side, I will go pretty quick. We've talked about them before, but I want to mention Mastodon, The Hunter. This was actually the first one I got of them, and then worked backwards. And then once they started having new releases, started getting those as well. I really like this. It opens up with Black Tongue, which I think is great. Octopus Has No Friends, right? Blasteroid, The Hunter. It's just really good. They're really good musicians. right? They're very tight and they're very strong and they're very solid and they have a very unique sound. And I like that. I remember hearing about them and I go, I got to give these guys a chance. I'm just hearing too much about them. And I just really do enjoy their music and their style and the uniqueness of their sound and the evolution of their sound. So Mastodon. Next up, yesterday we talked about some bands that have women who front a hard rock heavy metal band. And one of those bands is Within Temptation. And Sharon Denadel is got some amazing pipes on her. She is awesome. This is called The Unforgiving. It's a whole story. It's, you know, one of those concept albums. It is really good. And I wouldn't even say that Within Temptation's heavy metal. They're kind of rock and roll with the female voice. Why Not Me? Shot in the Dark. You know, Faster is a great song. It's you know, and then like I said, it's a whole story. It's really cool, super cool, almost like comic book type cover on it. Really, really strong material here. Another band with a female fronted singer, Elise Ridd here, Amaranth or Amaranth, however you want to pronounce it. What's cool about them, and this is their debut album, what's cool about them is they actually have 3 singers. They have Elise, and then they have a clean vocals male singer and then a growling male vocal singer. And the 3 of them switch off in a lot of the songs, which gives a very unique sound to their music. But they also have kind of a pop rock sound to the music or a pop heavy metal sound. So it's very unique and different. And we're always talking about creativity and risk. That's what it takes to be successful. And I think they're just about a month away from putting out their 5th or 6th record. So they're really going. They're really good. Elise is super sweet. If you look on my website, her picture is on the front there behind the camera. She was sweet enough to let me use that and represent. She is a superstar. And the band is great, and they're worth a check out if you're interested in different styles of music and uniqueness to a sound. Amaranth is how I say it, but check them out. All right, my runner-up for 2011, Symphony X Iconoclast, and I'm showing you the single CD version. I have the double CD version. The double CD version is the one to listen to because it is a concept album, and that is the album the way it's meant to listen to, the 2 CDs, the full songs in a row. This was edited down for the commercial success of it, selling it out, and so they took out a few songs to, not meaning selling it out in the sense of their sellouts, meaning just to sell at a lower price, a single CD price. But they had to cut a few songs out, and still this flows really good. But I had bought the double version originally because that was when I read about this album, that was how they intended it. So that's how I wanted to listen to it. So I had that first, but I had to get this for the collection. It's a cool story. Some long songs on here, some different changes in here, different stuff. And yes, this is a power metal band. There's no way around it. They're right there in your face, and a really good band and a cool name, Symphony X. Russell Allen is a really strong singer, by the way. Number 1 for 2011, the Bronx Casket Company, Antihero. This is terrific. I listen to it a ton. It is Dee Verney of the band Overkill. This is his solo project. We've talked about them before, but this is him on vocals now. I think maybe the album before he sang on vocals, but for this one, for sure he's on it. And I mean, Antihero, Bonesaw, Sally, it's really, really good. In one of the songs, you hear Kurt Russell's voice from Tombstone. You tell him I'm coming, and hell's coming with me. You tell him I'm coming, and hell's coming with me. Once again, Overkill, Bronx Casket Company, they were the ones that used Alec Baldwin's voice before, tying music and movies together. I love when musicians love movies. I love when movies love musicians, and you get that combination. And I don't mean putting musicians in the movie. Don't come back to me and say, well, wait a second, Rob, you said this about Timberlake. It's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when they use certain songs and music in their movies because they're fans, like we talked about Cusack and The Clash, right? That's what I'm saying. And Overkill, Bronx Casket Company, Dee Verney, loves movies and ties that into his music quite a bit. And it's cool. This is more of like a kind of a southern heavy metal rock, you know, kind of different sound to it. Has some good changes. It's really good, strong stuff. And once again, I think I said this before when I talked about him. How can you go wrong with the name, the Bronx Casket Company? I mean, it's just a great, great band name. Anyways, that is my number one for 2011 Antihero. And then, like I said, on the movie side, Moneyball. There you have it. So, once again, leave your comments. I'm loving them. Tomorrow, we're going to do something a little different. And then on Friday, we'll be back with 2012. So stay tuned for our surprise tomorrow. Thanks for watching. We'll see you then.